Hi, welcome to a special edition of BNS About Movies. This is sponsored by the Hollywood Theater, who presents their Hollywood Theater 91st birthday fundraising party on May 6th. Doors open at 7 p.m., raffle at 8 p.m., film at 8:30. They're going to show Bob Roberts, which was filmed in Pittsburgh and features, of course, sure, a lot of people, but Tom Atkins, right? The hosts for the evening are John Cassell-Fetterman. If you're from Pittsburgh, you'll know her big in the renewal of Braddock and really involved in social activism. You'll also see food catered by Kevin Sousa, sodas and iced teas provided by the Snapple Group, and you get 5 raffle tickets as they're going to be giving away over $7,500 worth of premium electronics and home entertainment prizes. There's over 50 prizes and fewer than 300 admission tickets available, so you have a great chance of winning. We'd also like to thank the Hollywood for setting up why this episode is so special, because I got to interview the Mads, who are Trace Blue, and Frank Conniff, who you will probably know better as the mad scientists from Deep 13 from Mystery Science Theater. Thanks to Dan Ayer for setting this up, and this was a great opportunity to talk to them. If you'd like to learn more about the Hollywood Theater, and you really should, it's an amazing place, and one of the true theaters in not just in town, but in this area, and even in the country, that's a single-screen theater that shows movies, real movies, and not just blockbusters, and also makes movies into an experience. We've seen a ton of things there. We saw Phantom of Paradise there. We saw Phantasm, tons of movies. Please visit them at theholiwooddormont.org. There you can find out some information on buying the tickets. And don't forget, May 6th is the 91st birthday of the Hollywood. Doors open at 7, raffle at 8, film at 8:30, and it's Bob Roberts. A great opportunity to help the Hollywood. Again, thanks to the Hollywood for getting this set up. And without further ado, here's a little bit with the Mads. My biggest struggle with this was putting together the questions I had for you guys. I'm sure you guys have answered the same questions a million times.
You don't mind.
You don't mind?
We'll just say pass.
Yeah.
Happy that anyone has an interest.
So the first question I always have to ask you guys, obviously, pretty much anyone that listens to my podcast is going to know you guys and know about Mystery Science Theater and the Mads and about what you've done. It's amazing to me coming from the outside. You guys are part of a cultural juggernaut, if you will. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of
But we've never killed anybody.
Oh, that I know of.
That you know of.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm willing to keep any secrets for this one. But, like, what was that like? Like, what's the journey to go from UHF to basic cable to, like, being a Hollywood movie? Like, what's that feel like?
We are so not famous in any other part of our lives than when we are in a theater or in a convention like a Comic-Con. That it feels pretty normal. I mean, we joke naturally and by nature, so we would be doing this whether there was an audience there or not. It looks better when there's an audience. We don't seem as creepy.
The question I have for you guys, I always wondered, did it get less fun as it became a bigger deal, or just feel like the same thing?
Well, thank you for saying it's a big deal, but this is the most fun that I've had riffing in any of the permutations of riffing with Mystery Science Theater, Cinematic Titanic, working with Frank on the road and doing these shows. As you saw last night, it was sold out. Sold out again tonight. This is what we want.
Yeah,
this is as fun as it gets.
Pure fun. At Mystery Science Theater, as the years went by, there were tensions between people and the company, so that part became less fun, although the riffing on the movie part and the creative part of it never became less fun.
Yeah, the actual work, what we're good at doing, was fun, but the business stuff and all that other crap that is not what creative people are good at, or maybe there are some guys that are, but no, like Frank said, the work is why we're doing this. It's to have fun and to entertain people. Kind of we get our own ego boost from that. Yeah, I think that's what I've always discovered. Like in the creative endeavors I've had, like whether it's advertising, I've been a pro wrestler for 20 years. It's like everything sucks until you actually get to do the fun part. Which is like the 10 you like for wrestling, you get like 10 or 15 minutes of fun a night, and then it's back to politics and dealing with people and egos and getting to the next town. And it's like, why can't I just do the fun part all the time? That should be a T-shirt. Everything sucks except the fun part. Well, and I think it's conveyed to our audiences too. The moment they get to the theater, we're having fun with them. We're talking to them. We're signing things for them and chatting, and we're not hiding somewhere in another part of the theater. We kind of feel like if you come to our shows, you're a VIP. We're not going to do a separate VIP thing backstage and be uncomfortable and sort of,
have sweaty cheese plates and funky wine. We enjoy meeting the fans. We wouldn't be doing this without the fans.
Absolutely.
Do you feel this? You're like there's more interactivity now versus like some of the past ways that you've done riffing.
Yeah, well, I think Twitter and Facebook, we didn't have that back in the Mystery Science Theater days. Although we did have really good interactivity with our fans through old-fashioned mail. We got mail every week that we would very excitedly read. So we always had a kind of interaction with the fans. But now with social media, it just makes it much more immediate. And plus, like Trace was saying, at our shows, we actually hang out before the show in the lobby. We meet our fans. We meet them afterwards. So it's that's a big part of it.
It makes it more casual.
Yeah.
And the aspect of the show that people have commented on in the past is it's like watching a movie with your friends.
Yeah.
And that's really what we feel. And the Hollywood is so fantastic to have that. I'm in my home theater here. That's how it really felt comfortable and like you're among your friends and we're all here for the same reason.
Right.
And that's what I love about it. The interaction and the immediacy. Everything's immediate now. Doing the live shows, we know immediately if a joke works or not. And that can be humbling sometimes when they don't. But we'll lay a few eggs, but the audience kind of likes that too.
Yeah. Sometimes the recovery from a bomb joke is more funny than
exactly.
Yeah.
As Johnny Carson proved many times.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should be able to, dig ourselves out of anything we create.
Yeah. What was the difference you think with Cinematic Titanic versus MST?
Well, it was stripped down. There was no robots, no concept behind it. We started with there was like a backstory, but we really quickly learned we didn't need it.
Yeah.
It was just the raw riffing of a movie. We even had a little bit of a variety show before the shows, and what we found and what we're doing now is it's just riffing on a movie. I don't think we could get any simpler.
Yeah, we have a very simple, low-tech show. Just us, 2 microphones and a movie. That's the whole show, And,
2 hours of laughing.
The simplicity of it is part of what helps make it fun, and people like working with us because there's not a lot of hassle to get us to do the show.
Yeah, we could not be easier.
How did you pick what movies you're going to do for the tour?
Well, Glenn or Glenda, we had a fondness for a long time.
Seemed like a natural choice. Ed, we also do Plan 9 from Outer Space sometimes, and Ed Wood is kind of the perfect filmmaker for us because there's an incompetency to his filmmaking, and yet there's also kind of a really lovely quality to his filmmaking. So we riff on it because it is pretty batshit.
Yeah.
But we have great affection for it, and we were just talking at lunch. Like I think Glenn or Glenda is a movie that I genuinely think, even though it's really bad, I also think it's kind of genuinely a great movie.
Yeah. We couldn't work with these films as much as we have. We've done Glenn or Glenda now 20 times on the road.
Yeah.
We never did a film that long with MST.
Yeah.
And you have to have an affection for these films. I fall in love with this movie every time I watch it.
Yeah, I just love Glenn or Glenda.
Yeah, it's got a great attitude about its subject matter. It's supposed to be exploitation, but it's not.
It's one of the most avant-garde films ever made.
Yes.
I think it's very much, it feels like the work of an auteur, which sounds silly to say about Ed Wood, maybe. But
no, totally. He is absolutely, if there's such a thing as an auteur, Ed Wood is it.
He got fairly labeled as the worst director of all time.
And he isn't by a long shot.
No, I think we proved that with Mystery Science Theater, that there are plenty of other guys. But he was the most well-known at the time, and I think if people go back and look at his films, the film Ed Wood would not have been made if Tim Burton didn't see the beauty and the pathos and just what a charming and lovely guy he is.
I think think he was like unfairly painted by the brush of the Medveds and the
Yes.
Turkey books. Like,
Yep.
I feel like that, and especially with the one movie they did that I only saw on HBO, doing the it's from Hollywood or whatever, the one like
Came from Hollywood.
Came from Hollywood. Yeah, the clip, like there was a ton of Ed Wood in that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing that as a kid and them talking, and I back then, and like this is like 78, 79, I couldn't just find this movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There wasn't an internet where I could be like, oh, I can watch it in seconds.
Yeah, I mean the Medveds were they were very pioneering in terms of their approach to writing about bad movies. It hadn't been done that much until them, so we give them a lot of props for that. But they labeled Ed Wood the worst director ever.
Yeah.
But I mean, I can see how it suited what they were doing.
It's a kind of
but-
shorthand too.
Yeah, but it really is not true at all. And I think a lot of people realize that. I think the Tim Burton film has a lot to do with that.
I always took Leonard Glenda as like his message film because I mean obviously he was Tim. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's
And
so
it's like,
personal.
especially in the time period it is, to have a guy like try to explain that to.
Yeah, it's
Maybe
a very,
not.
it's a very compassionate approach
Yeah.
to a subject that most other filmmakers of the time would have done a very exploitive. It's the genre of Leonard Glenda is exploitation film, although it's not particularly exploitive. Someone else, I think, would have portrayed in the 50s. Any other director doing having a transvestite character would have had them be a killer or something
Yeah.
like that. You know.
They would have been the main villain in the
Right.
yeah. It reminds me more of like Kruger Babb kind of films, like Mom and Dad, where they're these like warning kind of films, but
Yes.
but then also you can see them as multiple ways. They're exploitation on one end, but on the other end, they're supposed to be it depended on what city he was playing in. That's what the film was.
Right. Well, some of the educational shorts we do have a much more bombastic American pro, Eisenhower era view of America, and you would think this film, Leonard Glenda, coming out of that same era, would take that same, kind of almost mocking approach to, this is bad behavior, the film approaches the subject matter so lovingly. We don't mock the subject matter; we mock the film.
Yeah.
Because I think that the message is conveyed very clearly from the film that, different strokes for different. Well, the doctor says it at the end. Love is the answer, which is, I think the message of the film.
I've always wondered what it was like for audiences that maybe didn't know what it was about to walk into that film at that time period and like kind of be greeted with what it was.
Well, the film when it came out, I think, was a flop. It didn't achieve what the company that made it hoped it would. It was like I said, it was a quickie exploitation film. But like Ed Wood's other films, like Plan 9 from Outer Space, it's just lived on, and deservedly so.
Yeah, I think it's funny for films that were made fun of. I found out about them 35, 40 years ago. They've lived on. They're going to live on maybe eternally. You know what I mean? Like, beyond what you would have expected. They might not get
It's too
Criterion
bad because
editions.
Ed Wood, unfortunately, he died in kind of squalor and poverty, and I think he had a drinking problem, and it all fell apart from him. It's really a shame that he wasn't around to see how famous he would become, and how much entertainment his movies give people. How much
absolutely.
pleasure they give, and he's a bad filmmaker, and yet he's a real blessing to filmmaking in general. And I talk about it in my book. I think he's a hero of independent filmmaking. He was doing indie films in the 50s before that was even a thing.
Yeah.
I don't think he's a bad filmmaker. I've seen so many independent films that I could never watch again.
Yeah.
Or could not get through the first time. And this one, what have you seen this 20 times?
Yeah.
Maybe more. Find something new every time.
He really had the soul of an artist.
Yes.
Ed Wood.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe if he had the right DP. I don't even know
The
that
films
well.
actually look pretty good.
Yeah.
Look at Plan 9. A good print of Plan 9 is a pretty gorgeous looking, rich black and white. The soundtrack's wonderful. And then it's got all this silly stuff, but you kind of admire it all.
I always is amazed at the cast of characters that he gathers together for his movies, where you have like Tor Johnson and Vampira and Criswell. Like there's every one of them has a crazy story that you can go off in all these different directions and discover things about them.
It was nerd culture before there was even that thing.
Yeah,
he was a total nerd. And like when he met Bela Lugosi, he was thrilled at a time when the world had thrown Bela Lugosi away. Mm-hmm. But he was such a nerd about him, and like Trey said, and there were no Comic-Cons or anything like that. There was no nerd culture then, and but that's really who he was, and he really did a real service for Bela Lugosi. Put him back to work.
Mm-hmm. What a hero!
Gave him a couple of films before he died.
Yeah. What kid wouldn't love to meet Bela Lugosi?
Yeah.
And then be friends with him, and then get to put him in his movie. It's just amazing.
That's my favorite part of the Ed Wood movie, the Johnny Depp one.
It's the whole movie, really, the center of that movie is the friendship between Ed Wood and Bela Lugosi.
The boy and his pool.
Yeah. I'm sure people have been asking you guys a lot of this. And if you don't feel comfortable answering it, but what do you feel about the new Netflix series? And do you have any thoughts on it?
I think it's going to do great. I think it's already a bona fide hit. Looking at the tomato rating, Rotten Tomato, and all those guys are really talented. So I think they're going to have a blast doing a show that we had a blast doing. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen any of it yet, so I can't comment directly on it. But I think I don't know how it can lose. It's got a lot of talented people.
It's doing really well, and I think it's helping us. There's a lot of interest in what we're doing with the Mads live show, and it lifts all boats. So and Jonah and Barron and Hampton are really good guys, and Patton's a friend of mine. So I say more power to it.
What's it like having him as your son?
I haven't. I'm like Trace. I haven't seen it yet, and it just seems to me that he's playing TV's Frank.
Yeah.
So that's fine. It's a little weird that there's a new TV that I'm kind of not TV's Frank anymore. That's something I have to kind of just accept. But
you will always be TV's Frank.
If they were going to recast my part, at least I'm glad that it's Pat.
Yeah. I think
since Dom DeLuise is no longer with us.
And that would have been an honor. But, at least it's someone who I like. And, but I'm not, people say, oh, he's your son. And I'm so not a part of that process that I don't even, it doesn't, it isn't the way I look at it. I just look at it as he's playing TV's Frank now.
Yeah, like a James Bond version of TV's Frank.
Yeah,
like the role gets passed.
He's like George Lazenby, whatever. Which is
Roger
not an
Moore.
insult, by the way, because that George Lazenby is one of my favorite Bond movies.
It's my favorite Bond movie.
Yeah.
And plus Lazenby is in a ton of crazy movies too.
Yeah, we just saw this one, Never Too Young to Die.
Yeah, I was just going to bring that with Stamos.
Yeah.
I actually, because we did a riff of that at the Alamo Draft House with the Master Pancake Theater, and we had never heard of it before. And that was one that I kind of predicted, and I think I was wrong, that it would be in the new Mystery Science Theater. It seems like it's perfect.
Yeah.
It should have been,
Yeah.
Well, season 2.
Yeah. It's a movie that nobody really knows about.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, if you think about it, I always get the feeling almost everything's been discovered. And then, I'm always waiting for people to discover that movie and know about it, because it's really strange.
Yeah, it's a great bad movie. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we're constantly amazed that we run into movies that we haven't heard of before, like that one, or the film that we're doing tonight. No one's ever heard of this film. It's a film noir with an early performance by Chuck Connors.
Oh wow!
And I wanted to do film noir, and I showed it to Frank. And went, I'm not quite sure about this movie, Frank, but I think it's okay.
Yeah, I went along with it, and we had a lot of reservations about it, but it's turned out to be a big hit with the audiences.
Yeah, it's a terrible print, but it's as good as Glen or Glenda, I think.
Well, that's guess, high praise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The bar is low, granted.
Yeah. What is it? You guys are all kind of Midwest. Maybe not originally in your case, but like from the Midwest scene. Like, how did so much great talent get into Mystery Science Theater in the beginning? Like, and then,
I think it was partly the fact that there was such a great stand-up comedy scene in Minneapolis.
Yeah.
In those days, there was great stand-up comedy in a lot of cities, as there is now. But Minneapolis in the mid '80s there was so much comedy talent. Not just the people that were on Mystery Science Theater, but Liz Winstead, Louis Anderson, Jeff Cesario, Joel Madison, Maria Bamford, Paul Dillery, Joe Keys. A lot of really, really hilarious, brilliantly funny people were in the same city at the same time, and then Joel moved back to the Twin Cities, and then so he was a part of it too. And so when he started Mystery Science Theater, he had he had Trace was right there for him, and J. Ellis Weinstein, and so he was able to bring them in just right from the start. You had great talent there, and then they brought Mike Nelson in to be the head writer, and he was from the stand-up comedy scene as well. And then I was lucky enough to come along a couple of years later, and then Kevin Murphy, not from stand-up, but was working at the TV station. So there was just a ton of talent in Minneapolis at that time. It was just the stars aligned. It kind of just all came together.
It was a really golden age.
Yeah.
We look back and we really cherish those days as being so free and creative. And there were so many places to work, and you could develop your act or realize you didn't have one, as in my case.
No, that's not true.
But
not true. Fake news.
But this so many people, like Frank said, were so much talent, and then this project comes along that everyone could get behind and get their creative satisfaction met on that, and just push forward with it, and dump all that creativity into one project. It's hard to get something to gel, even with a great idea. Getting everything to line up and stay together. Like, how many bands, that was a great band, but now they're done. And to have a show stay for 10 years and then get resurrected, that's kind of unheard of.
Yeah. Question for you guys, like when you would get in the movies back in the day, and a lot of these movies, you've unearthed a few movies too, what was the feeling like when you got like a film like, say, Amanos? Like, like the first time seeing it, like, was it just this like eureka moment?
Well, Frank opened the cardboard tomb and released that curse on the world.
Yeah, because it was my job to screen the movies and pick them to recommend to the rest of the crew. And Amanos was one of those, we were dumbfounded by it, but we knew right from the moment we first saw it that it was perfect for our show. We had other films where there were debates about should we do this or not. There was no debate about Manos.
Yeah. It was something special.
Yeah.
We didn't quite know why, but it's probably the most popular title.
It's the film.
That and Mitchell.
Out of all of them, it's the film that we made famous.
You made famous.
Well, we
you found it. Had you not opened that box?
It's kind of it. Of all the films we've done, it's the one that's had a life beyond the show. People, and we don't even understand why people are restoring it and doing.
I bought it. I'm an idiot.
You bought the Blu-ray?
Yeah, I bought the Blu-ray. It's my wife's favorite movies. Like, she loves it.
And does the improved print quality make it a better movie?
You can see more flubs. Like the scene when they're walking through the darkness, you can see car lights down on the highway. So it doesn't feel like you're in this other world. It feels like, we're just in the desert somewhere.
Because the poor transfer quality gave it another patina of evil.
Yeah, exactly.
It had already been dipped in Satan's sweat.
Yeah.
Like if someone told me that it had been made by a cult somewhere, and like the movies, the UFOs cults made in LA, Like if they told me that, I'd be like, yeah, okay, I buy that. Like it seems like a bunch of crazy people made it.
It's like early Scientologists would have made that.
But
film.
the truth is it was made by a fertilizer salesman who had dreams of
bigger shit.
Of being, yes, being a filmmaker. So, yeah, it's very, it really is the most iconic film we ever did, and that wasn't planned on our part. It just had a life on its own, regardless.
I think it's different than Hunter London, but I think when people were faced with something that crazy, start to write in some of their own ideas, like why do these characters show up? Why do they disappear? Like who would write something like this? And I can't even imagine like being in it or like it's like I've read.
But it has the quality that's essential to any film that we riff, either as the Mads or as Mystery Science Theater. It's a sincerity on the part of the filmmakers.
Mm-hmm.
That guy Harold P. Warren, he was really doing what he hoped would be like a big-time horror movie that would launch a new career for him, and he did it with all intentions of making what he hoped would be a really good film, and it didn't turn out that way.
Well, it took a long time. Now, look, everyone knows it.
Now everyone knows it. So, but that's like one of the essential ingredients of any Mystery Science Theater film is a sincerity on the part of the filmmaker when they make it. Stuff that's self-aware, stuff like Sharknado is not, to me, is not nearly as ideal a situation.
The heart isn't in the right place in those films.
And so we've talked about that on our podcast as we've reviewed films, where it's like we'd rather watch a movie like that maybe it's crazy and maybe it's bad, but somebody was trying to make art, maybe, or at least a product that people would want to see, versus like a trauma movie or which there's people that like those, or Sharknado, like you said, where it's so self-aware that almost the humor doesn't appear in it and the heart doesn't appear in it. And I can't get into it because I can hear people saying, well, wouldn't it be cool if we put Hasselhoff in this, or we put this person in it?
Well, and I think that's why the original Mystery Science Theater gelled so well, is that there was a lot of heart in that show. And I think that's what people respond to. We meet fans now all the time that tell us it helped them through a really rough patch in their lives. And you can't build that in. That's just something that happens organically.
Right.
And you can't just go, okay, now we're going to put the heart into it. It doesn't happen that way.
Yeah. You guys, I'm sure you get asked a lot, what is your favorite movie?
There's so many.
Yeah, it's hard to pick.
Many,
yeah. A couple even if you.
Well, we both love Dr. Strangelove, the Marx Brothers movies, Laurel and Hardy.
Duck Soup.
Duck Soup is brilliant.
The Bank Dick.
W.C. Fields,
Shane is one of my favorite movies.
I love Bedazzled.
The original,
Yes.
Citizen Kane.
That hack. Godfather.
The Godfather. Sweet Smell of Success. The Night of the Hunter.
Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, there's a few like that are just right up there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Is it hard when you're watching a movie like for pleasure now to like not kind of think of possibilities for?
We're asked that all the time, and it's actually really easy to not riff when you're watching a good movie. I tend to, because I've seen so many bad movies, I'm very appreciative when I'm watching a good movie, and I just want to get lost in the movie and enjoy it. And it's the last thing I think of to do is to yell out wisecracks during it.
Yeah, if we're riffing on a film, then it's failed its mission as a film.
And by the way, we do Alamo Draft Houses all over the country, which they have a very strict no talking policy, except when we're there.
Yeah.
But I think that when you go to a movie theater, I think it's rude to talk, not just during a good movie, but even a bad movie. If you're in a public movie theater and you're watching a bad movie, it's rude to yell out riffs because some other people are there. They might be enjoying it, So I think riffing, if it's not in a riffing show like what we do, it's really for when you're at home and doing it with friends. It's not for in a public theater.
And I don't like people talking through the trailers as well.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's part of the movie experience.
I agree. Yeah. I actually like the trailer sometimes more than what I'm going to be seeing.
Trailers,
Yeah.
trailers are always good, even when the movie isn't.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's true.
I found I've been buying more trailer sets of DVDs of like 70s and 80s movies than movies now.
They're wonderful.
Yeah. Especially coming from an advertising background, it's like the most pure essence of like, here's 60 seconds or 90 seconds of something that might not be that good.
Right.
Especially in
Right.
like 70s and 80s horror. But here's like, I got to see this movie now, and then when you get to it.
Yeah, that's funny. I never thought of it that way. Yeah,
People who saw the Wonder Woman trailer think it might be good. That's how deceptive it was.
I actually saw someone get kicked out of the Hollywood riffing on a movie.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, they were, Argento's Deep Red was playing, which if you haven't seen Argento or 70s Italian horror, it can move really slow.
Right.
And like there's like punctuated by moments of people's heads going through windows or gore.
Mhm.
And like they were just yelling for about 20 minutes straight about how bad this movie was. and actually the scary part was I used to date the person who was getting kicked out. So like I was with somebody else. It was like years later. I'm like, oh god. And they got thrown out. They're like, we have a strict policy of not talking during the movies. And they literally said, this is not Mystery Science Theater. This is the Hollywood Theater.
Ooh.
To them.
Yeah, good. We love the Hollywood Theater. It's it feels like that's our kind of church.
Yes.
The Alamo Drafthouse, the Hollywood Theater, people that respect film and play a lot of diverse programming. We love that.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about Cartoon Dump and what that is?
Well, Cartoon Dump is a show that I have been doing. I did it in Los Angeles for a long time. It's a very theatrical kind of presentation with sets and everything. And we showed really bad cartoons from my friend Jerry Beck, who's an animation historian, from his collection. It was kind of like the premise was that it's a kid's show, but with awful. Patton Oswalt actually described it as it's like a kid's show in Bosnia. But now I've been doing it in New York, although it's a different show in New York. It's more of a stand-up show now, and I have several comedians in the show, and then I show the cartoons between the comedians, and the difference too with the New York version is that I actually riff on the cartoons now, which I didn't used to do in L.A., and I lost my owl costume, so now I'm not even dressed up as the owl anymore, but so it's kind of evolved into just a stand-up show where I riff really bad cartoons between the acts, and I'm going to be doing that version of the show in Los Angeles at the Steve Allen Theater on June 3rd.
Oh, awesome. Question, I think today's comedy talent knows you guys a lot. Obviously, I think a lot of people, Mystery Science Theater is an influence, and I think one of the reasons why it's so information-packed in a time when it was created, today, like, really dense information thanks to the internet is like happens a lot, but obviously you guys were ahead of your time. Have you heard from anybody that cites you as an influence?
We've been all the time. Yeah, a lot of the people that are working on the new MST grew up watching the show. Some of them even wrote for us. We did remote writing. We would send a copy of the tape out to other writers. Some of the people from The Onion were writers on the show too. But we encounter that all the time.
Now I have to get in touch with those people to see if I can get a writing job on the new MST.
What influences then have you guys had? Like what like stand up or comedy influences do you have?
Everything. Like the movies we talked about, the comedians, almost every.
Well, Woody Allen,
yeah.
and not just his brilliant stand-up, but he did a precursor to Mystery Science Theater with What's Up, Tiger Lily?
Yeah.
And George Carlin and
all the greats,
Richard Pryor,
all the television.
Don Rickles, rest in peace.
And
I was influenced by everything I saw on TV growing up.
Everyone who was ever on the Carson Show,
Yeah.
growing up, all those great comedians and musicians. It's hard to like make a list because it would be like almost everyone would be on that list.
It feels weird because I think where there's more avenues to see comedy now, like there's not like this thing like the Carson Show, like where when
there's no one place that's the ultimate that makes or career, comedy careers now happen. Every TV shot that you get is just one step in the process of building your audience, and a lot of comedians now, like Jen Kirkman or Paul F. Tompkins, they really build it up online now, and they cultivate their audience and get them to come to shows and buy their albums, and it's more specialized now, which is good in some ways and it's harder in other ways. It's a mixed blessing.
One of the funniest guys I can cite is Dana Gould.
Yeah,
and we've known him for 30 years. I went on the road with him from back in the 80s before Mystery Science.
He's as brilliant as any
comedic
mind.
Dangerous and funny. Dangerous and funny and scary, and all of that stuff that is surprising. And I saw him do his act and go, "Oh, that's how it should be done."
Yeah,
I can't do that.
Yeah, he and like Maria Bamford are probably the most brilliant stand-ups working today.
So I'm going to name a few crappy movies, and I hope that you may have seen them. And if not, then maybe I'll introduce you guys to a movie that you haven't seen. Have you ever seen Your Hunter from the Future?
Yeah, but it's been a long time.
Yeah. I think it's worthwhile. They took a.
Why is he Your Hunter from the Future?
It's a spoiler within the. It's YOR, not YOU.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but it's a spoiler right in the title because you find out at the end of the movie that he's not from a prehistoric planet; he's from our planet. But the spoiler is right in the title of the movie, which.
Right, just like Death of a Salesman.
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
Can't Stop the Music.
I think I own that movie.
On Laserdisc?
No, on DVD.
Oh. You have the whole Nancy Walker collection.
Yeah.
Well,
I have that and all of her Rhoda work, but Can't Stop the Music is just a document of a certain time that people should really see.
Yeah, and it's a young Bruce Jenner.
Yeah, Bruce Jenner, and it's really a crazy movie. It's worth watching, believe me.
Yeah, but it seems like all my suggestions are all musicals. So
sure.
But The Apple, I'm sure you've seen.
I've heard. I haven't seen The Apple.
Really?
I don't know The Apple.
And I know that it was on Turner Classic Movies one night, and I watched a few minutes of it. I just couldn't.
What's it about?
It's the guys who started Canon, the two cousins, the Globus.
Golan Globus.
Yeah, it's the one movie he directed for Canon. It's kind of like as you said, it's a document of its time in the 70s. It's a disco musical about Adam and Eve in a rock contest.
Okay.
Everybody in the movie, male and female, has camel toe and has stickers on their faces. And hippie God comes down in a limousine and takes them away at the end. And there's about 15 songs, and it's made in East Germany.
Nice.
Yeah. And it has the girl from
East Germany.
East Germany. Well, in between, right in Berlin, like right on the edge. Yeah.
Okay.
And then Sgt. Pepper, the Bee Gees version.
Oh, of course.
I have seen that, and I do a radio show, Sirius XM, 2 to 5 every afternoon with John Fugelsang, and we had Peter Frampton on our show.
Mm-hmm.
He brought up Sgt. Pepper.
Really?
We were polite. We didn't bring it up.
What did he say about it?
He said something funny, disparaging about it. I can't remember, but it's not without its charms. It's really terrible, but the Earth, Wind, and Fire version of "Got to Get You Into My Life" is sensational, and actually all of the music in it is, of course, it's the Beatles. It's great music, and the versions of them are good, but it's just, the story and everything is just ridiculous.
It's one of the weirdest movies I've seen, where it's just like people you love are forced into situations where you begin to hate them as actors, and it's like that's when I know I'm watching.
And also, you reminded me when mentioning my all-time favorite movies, I forgot to mention A Hard Day's Night, which is
absolutely
which is one of the most important movies in my life ever.
And my last one on my list is Son of Dracula, not the Universal one, but the Ringo Starr produced one.
I don't know that.
I'm not familiar
Son
with
of Dracula.
Yeah, it is Ringo Starr and I can't remember the guy who wrote Lime in the Coconut.
Oh, Harry Nilsson.
Harry Nilsson. They did it while they were the Hollywood Vampires, and they filmed it with Freddie Francis, who did all the movies like Tales from the Crypt. And So it was supposed to be a horror movie, and really it's like about 2 hours of just them playing songs together. And
That sounds good.
Yeah, but his band's crazy. Frampton's in that too, in his band, and pretty much most of the Stones' horn section. But then the real story is he doesn't want to be a vampire anymore, and there's this thing of like removing his fangs. There's only one print, I guess, that lives of it. It played at a drive-in thing here last year, and it's really strange. Like I can't really put it into words how strange.
Well, if
it
you're
is.
as long as you're bringing up Harry Nilsson,
Yeah.
I will bring up Skidoo.
Oh, that's a great movie.
Which he did the music to, and is an absolutely insane movie that everyone should see.
Doesn't with the
Has
Groucho
a great sexy love scene between Frankie Avalon and Carol Channing. And it has Jackie Gleason on acid.
Yeah.
I'm not just saying Jackie Gleason on acid. No, Jackie Gleason is on acid in the movie. It has an incredible cast. Groucho is in it, and he's terrible. I hate to say that. He barely is remembering his lines in the scene he's in.
Isn't he a gangster in it?
Yeah. He plays God.
He plays God, yeah.
Although he's the gangster, is called God.
What year was that made?
That was made, I believe, 1968.
68.
And it's at the height of the whole counterculture, and it's Otto Preminger, normally a great director, trying to be hip and contemporary, and it's really it's a complete mess that everyone should see.
I love movies there at the end of like post Easy Rider, where the major studios are like, we have to make a movie for the kids.
Yeah,
and like that's what came out of it.
No,
and the same
I think that predated Easy
Oh,
Rider,
really?
though. Yeah.
But it feels like whenever anyone tries to jump into like what normally exploitation movies are doing, when big studios get into it and jump in. So I like those, and I really like the last wave of like devil worship 70s movies. That's usually what we talk about.
I'm a big fan too of Psych Out with Jack Nicholson, which is a hippie LSD movie.
I have that too, yeah.
Asbury.
Yeah, I like, for some reason, I'm not hippie, but I love hippie movies from that era.
Well, one of my favorite, and it's genuinely, I think, a really terrific movie, is Wild in the Streets.
Yes, that's terrific.
Which is probably American International's most creatively ambitious film they ever did. It's a dark satire of the youth culture as the youth culture was happening about a rock star who becomes president of the United States, and everyone over 30 is taken away to LSD camps.
The last time I saw
love a movie with that plot.
It sounds like a Jack Chick track more than a movie.
Last time I saw that movie was at in Bicknell, Utah. Trent Harris, the filmmaker, has this film festival, the world's smallest film festival with plenty of parking, and they screened a 35 millimeter print of that.
Oh wow!
And it's an amazing film to see in a theater.
Yeah, I saw it in a theater when it came out.
Yeah, but that's a great one. It makes me think of one of my favorite films is The Loved One.
Oh, The Loved One. Based on the
Evelyn Waugh
novel.
It's got Robert Morris doing an English accent, Jonathan Winters, a very young Paul Williams.
Oh wow!
And an amazing performance by Rod Steiger as Mr. Joyboy, who's a mortician.
Oh wow!
But if you can find that one,
that was a movie that came out maybe like 2 years before its time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it was right before that whole late '60s New Hollywood.
Yeah, it's
crazy. It has Terry Southern working on the screenplay for it.
It's really brilliant, and it kind of grows on you as you watch it and rewatch it.
Tony Richardson directed it.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that. I've never seen that one. Paul Williams has a weird film history.
He does. He's like 12 in this movie. Or,
really?
You know, he's 20, but he's playing 12.
Who is?
Paul Williams.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's a great fan of Paradise.
Yes.
That's like his entrance when he walks in and like into the room with all the girls is like the craziest entrance to him. That whole movie's just amazing.
I've never seen it.
Really?
To this day. It's on my list of films.
I actually saw it at the Hollywood too. They played it last year. And I don't think the audience was super ready for it. 'Cause I think they were expecting Rocky Horror, and instead they got De Palma making like a De Palma movie with like multiple cameras moving at the same time, and then there's a lot of '50s music in it too. It's pretty awesome. I just wanted to invite you guys to riff on Pittsburgh's rich cultural movie heritage. We've had a few movies made here. Flashdance was made here. RoboCop.
RoboCop.
I like that movie.
Yeah.
I wouldn't riff on RoboCop.
No.
The second one, maybe.
The third one, definitely.
Yeah.
Pretty much, we're the zombie capital of the world between night, dawn, and day.
Yeah.
And the only other major movie, I don't know, Dan, can you think of any other ones?
Oh, Striking Distance.
Striking Distance, yeah. That's,
Yes.
We
What about
actually did.
Sudden Death?
Oh, my God. We did that on our show, and I totally forgot.
We just watched that a couple of weeks ago at the Alamo in
Yeah,
Austin.
we ripped on it at the Alamo.
You guys should have brought some of that here. That would have been a big... The scene with the penguin fighting
Yes.
Van Damme is a crowd pleaser.
Well, they were telling us that it was originally going to be a comedy.
Yeah.
And then they went, no, it's an action film. But they left that fight sequence with the big plush penguin.
It has a crazy history because the owner of the Penguins, his wife wanted to be a star. So he wrote that movie as a vehicle for her.
Never a good idea.
No, and the league was on lockout because the players were on strike.
Mm-hmm.
So then none of the players are actually, there's only like 2 or 3 actual players in it.
Yeah.
And then they got all the farm teams to play the Pens and the Blackhawks in it.
Well, that makes more sense because when you watch the movie, the whole evil plot is based on, the score of the game.
Yeah.
And it's like, who cares? It's
I
like-
love that the guy planned everything but didn't watch hockey. And he's
Yeah.
like, what, it can go into overtime? Yes.
Yeah.
Like, that's a major part of hockey. Like,
Well, then we have a title.
yeah. There's a lot of crazy stuff in it. It's sad for Pittsburgh because there's no more Civic Arena. It's been moved to a different arena.
Yeah.
So it's very much a piece of 80s. Striking Distances, too. There's no River Cops, but,
Mhm.
like, that's one of the
Which
things.
one is Striking Distance?
Bruce Willis is in
Oh,
it.
and
Sarah Jessica Parker.
Sarah Jessica Parker. Yes, I saw that in the theaters.
Oh. And Tom Atkins, who's like
So you were the
Pittsburgh's
one who
biggest
saw it in the
actor.
theater.
I was the one guy.
My wife has seen that movie. We talked about it on the podcast. I think she's seen it 300 times.
Wow.
Like, her dream was to be a riverboat cop as a kid, and then when she moved here from
Yeah.
Detroit, she found out there weren't any riverboat cops. And she had to find another career.
So that was a totally fictitious, made-up
Yes,
career for
Pittsburgh.
Bruce
Yeah.
Willis.
Yeah, even though we have, like, pretty much there's rivers everywhere, the movie gives you the idea that there's a lot of traffic that moves on the rivers and that you
a
need
lot of criminals,
criminal activity.
doing voting.
Yeah, but there's none of that. What
I'm
other?
really disappointed in your knowledge of
Oh, Zach and Mary Make a Porno was
Zach and Mary Make a
Dogma was
Porno,
made.
Dogma,
Batman.
Batman, the second one, not the one with Bane.
Bane, yeah.
Batman.
He's got his CPAP machine on
Yeah.
the whole movie.
Yeah. Which for Pittsburghers, that and sorry, this is Dan because I
No,
haven't
no,
been on
that's
this
okay,
at all,
no.
so you can introduce me later. In this. That and Jack Reacher and the one with
Jack Reacher done in Pittsburgh?
Jack Reacher, not the first one, not the second. And then what was the one with 3 Days?
Oh, with
Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe. Yeah, there's a Kevin Costner.
The
one,
next
too.
three, the next 3 days.
Oh, and Abduction is done here with the kid from Twilight. The one that was a werewolf in Twilight, where he's a secret agent, kind of like Jason Bourne.
Missed that one.
You guys might want to do that one.
Yeah.
It's pretty great.
It has good riffing
What
possibility.
about the Mysteries of Pittsburgh?
It was filmed here,
Uh,
but it really, I mean, I haven't even seen that.
Adventureland-
That's one of my favorite
Adventureland
books,
is
too.
This is a book. Then it's
Yeah.
a film.
Is that
Yeah.
Michael Chabon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Adventureland.
is here too. That's filmed at the
At Kennywood.
Kennywood Park. Actually,
Wonder Boys.
there's another one too with. My wife would kill me because she loves it so much. Serendipity or something. It's filmed. The beginning of it's filmed here. Because
Serendipity's New York.
there's one where
Sorry
they go
that
to
I know
Italy and it's. She'll kill me if she was here on the podcast. She'd be screaming at me. But the only reason I know this
The
movie was
Marissa
filmed.
Tomei one?
Yeah, Marissa Tomei one. Yeah. The only reason I know it was filmed here is the guitarist in my band is in that scene, and like he's like 9 years old, and like you can, sometimes you can tell when someone's a kid,
Yeah.
and you can kind of see their face. It's definitely him. Like, oh my god, like that's Haas. And so like I called him during the movie, and I'm like, are you in this? But it's a weird question, but are you in this movie? Because I didn't even know if he grew up here.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I never told you. Like
So-
in the scene in it.
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs. Yeah.
Wow.
Lorenzo's Oil.
Lorenzo's
That was a
Oil.
good movie.
Yeah.
My high school principal.
That'd be a
was
very
in that.
difficult one to riff on, I think.
Yeah, like what is
Like,
a movie that can't be?
Yeah,
riffed
is there
on?
anything that you would never touch? Like, and the band played on, maybe?
We don't riff on good movies. you
Yeah.
know. It's not in our
It's true, yeah.
repertoire.
Yeah.
It's not something we're interested in.
Well, not even modern movies like Batman, which we don't
Yeah.
like. They're just too long.
Yeah.
The movies we do now are like in that sweet spot of 70, 72 minutes. And
That's why I love old exploitation movies. Like 80 minutes, you're out.
Yeah.
And you don't like. Okay.
Well, they had to run so many films in a night.
Yeah.
You couldn't program enough. So.
Especially grindhouses that were running all the time. Like you just want more stuff to be in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, Batman v Superman is the length of 3 movies.
I don't think I can.
None of
Or
them
it
good.
seems like the length of 6 movies.
Yes. Yeah.
So I have a couple. I told some of our podcast listeners you guys were going to be on, so I have some questions for you guys from our listeners. One, what does Dr. Forster use to get his hair to look so awesome?
Sweat.
Sweat.
Yeah. No, I think there was just a lot of hairspray.
Yeah.
Yeah, and gel.
What books are you guys reading right now?
I'm trying to get through Hillbilly Elegy. I think that's the title.
Yeah.
And I've started it several times, and I kind of lose interest. And if everyone tells me it's a great book,
It is. It did some work to get through, though.
yeah.
It's not a page turner.
No, it's kind of slow. It's going to be a Ron Howard movie, I guess.
Oh, I hadn't heard that they
Yeah,
didn't be
they-
picked up film rights
yeah.
for it.
But I'm enjoying it. It's taking me a while to get into.
I'm reading a book called Small Town Talk, which is about Bob Dylan and his manager Albert Grossman, and about them moving to Woodstock in the '60s. And it's all about the town of Woodstock,
Oh, wow.
and all the musical people and creative people that were in that community at the time.
I haven't heard of that. Sounds really cool.
Yeah.
How many? Someone asked, what phrases do fans ask you to say the most when they meet you?
Push the button.
Push the button.
Yeah.
No deep hurting.
Well, we got
You
to
get that,
hurting a
deep
couple of
hurting.
weeks ago in the Q&A.
And the last question they asked, so when Joel left, he took the phrase gizmonics with him. So what was the genesis of Deep 13? Was there any story behind?
Well, it was supposedly 13 floors beneath the Gizmonic Institute that the evil scientists had retreated to
Right.
do their evil plan of putting a man into space and forcing him to watch movies. Beyond that, don't start pulling at those threads because it's not a tightly woven tapestry.
I think that's the thing. I think when fans see things and they almost build their own mythology, they're like, well, there has to be. Do you know what I mean? Like we learn these things with song lyrics. Like
Right.
what's the deeper meaning? To
Well,
that?
I think that's why the show has also been taken so personally and been so successful with the fan base, is that they can apply their own ideas and feelings to it. There wasn't a set rule, and this is how we're going to do the show. There was no plan. It evolved organically, and now that people can apply their own thoughts to it, I think it just makes it better for them. But we really did not have, here's A and we're going to B. It was evolving.
Yeah, it always amazes me like 'cause I always want to know like there's this thirst to know what the story of creation of something is. Do you know what I mean? Is there like this
Mhm.
big idea behind it? Because like I think especially as the internet gets bigger, there's these wikis and these sites that have to find out this. There's this like Dan has this thing where what do you call it when you start working late at night? Wormholing.
Wikipedia wormhole.
Yeah.
If I can't sleep, I'll just click on a Wikipedia article and then keep clicking on something that interests me. The scariest thing is when you wake up the next morning and you click back 6 pages, and the 3 most common things that you hit are either Nazi Germany, the Winter Olympics, or like 1970s cult films, and like that. Those are the
Yeah.
3 because
And then in the morning when we come in, we worked in the same office. He would just show me his search history.
I admire them. I usually keep my search history secret.
He said,
I think people have a need to have things explained.
Yeah.
And some things are just not explainable.
Yeah.
You know, one of the greatest quotes I heard was from David Lynch. He said, life doesn't make sense, so why should art make
People
sense?
always ask me, why did Peavy's Frank sometimes call Forrester Steve? And that was something from a sketch that Mike Nelson wrote, and there is literally no explanation for it.
Yeah.
He just thought it was funny. It just struck him as funny, and that's why it's there.
yeah, just like the turn of phrase of
Yeah,
There's
just
got to
like
be a
calling
reason.
him a different name just
Yeah.
seemed funny at the time to Mike,
why-
and we all thought it was funny too.
Why
There's no
conspiracy
explanation.
theories are so popular is people have, there's got to be a reason for this. It's like, no, sometimes there's not a reason for it. Why is the earth flat? They want it, it's just flat. Don't try to figure it out.
Is it scary to you that the world seems to be getting a little dumber in the
Yes.
in the last maybe since January, maybe.
Yeah, in the last half year.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's terribly distressing.
If you told me 3 years ago that people would think the Earth was flat and there would be a movement behind this, I don't know what I would have thought.
Oh, that's been around for a while, though.
But there's
Really?
like these new
Yeah.
like
Flat Earth
football
is
players and things coming forward and going. It's like, and I go, this is a joke, right? This is not true. People want to be stupid. I think it's an easier lifestyle for them.
Yes.
And settle for mediocrity because then every day is special.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a president specializing in mediocrity. I don't even think it's less than that. It's less than mediocrity. But it's reassuring to come to places like the Hollywood Theater, and you're with a group of like-minded people, and they're really smart, and they're really into film culture,
Yeah.
and they're aware of things that are happening in the world. It makes me feel a little bit better. I think the people that are mostly focused on the internet maybe don't go to those places in public. They just sit in their little wet, puddly holes and react to things.
I think that's the worst thing than yelling at the screen is seeing people watch their screens during movies now.
Yeah, or just walking down the street.
Yeah.
Frank made this comment the other day on the radio program. He went to Bermuda, and everyone on the way in the car was looking at their phone.
Yeah.
And beautiful scenery.
And I was actually talking about my coworkers who were right there in the room.
Did they
And then
know?
Neil showed me a picture, our producer.
Yeah.
He said, "Here, I'm looking out the window here."
He has a picture of himself looking out the window.
Yes, he does.
Photoshop.
Oh, man. So is there anything you guys like to plug before we're done?
Well, my radio show every day, 2 to 5, Tell Me Everything, Sirius XM, channel 121. We have our weekly podcast
With Carolina
Carolina
Hidalgo.
Hidalgo, which is called Movie Sign with the Mads, kind of like this podcast.
Yep.
We talk about movies, and I have 2 books that are available on Amazon. One is called 25 Mystery Science Theater Films That Changed My Life in No Way Whatsoever, and the other is called Katz v. Conniff, which is about the famous case that everybody read about, where my cat sued me for defamation of character. So both of those books are available at Amazon and paperback and Kindle, and I always have copies at shows.
Awesome.
Yeah,
We
we've
have
got
shows coming up every weekend. From
Check
here.
our Facebook and
Yeah.
also our webpage, themadsback.com. For I think we're booked out we're even booking into 2018 now.
Oh, wow. Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys, for coming in. Really
Thank you.
Hope it was somewhat interesting and fun.
Yeah,
fun.
it's
Thank
always
you.
fun to talk about movies.
All right, cool. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Hi, thanks for listening to this special episode of BNS About Movies. I have Angelo and Becca here, so you guys know that they're still around.
Hello.
If you want to find out about the 91st anniversary of the Hollywood Theater and see Bob Roberts in a theater, as well as meet some cool people, eat some of Kevin Seuss's food, you can find out more information at
TheHollywoodDormont.org.
And special thanks to help clean up this audio to my friend Dan Ferraro. His website is danferraroaudio.com. That's DANFERRARO audio.com. Dan will be too shy to tell you, but he's done ADR for pretty much 75% to 90% of the movies made in Pittsburgh and movies not made in Pittsburgh. He did all of Viola Davis's dialogue for Suicide Squad, and he did another, what's the girl from Grey's Anatomy?
You always ask this.
Yeah.
Katherine Heigl.
Katherine Heigl. He completely ADR'd a movie with Katherine Heigl, start to finish. She redid every single one of her lines and dubbed them in. And he said he realizes why people think she's mean, because he said it was really one of the toughest situations he's ever seen an actor or actress be in. But Dan's awesome, and I really appreciate him cleaning this up. Thanks for listening to this episode. If you have any comments or questions, reach out to us at bnsaboutmovies@gmail.com. We'll see you with another episode soon. And as Becca always says,
We will see you at the movies.